Great. I think you just have to hit that. Got it. Okay. Great. Welcome everyone to Senate Education. Today is January 3rd, 2024. Welcome back. For new folks, welcome to Senate Education. We thought we would start, before we do committee priorities, go around the room, do some introductions. Then we're going to have Beth St. James, our Ledge Counsel, do a little bit of a recap of work that we finished last year, and then we'll go through committee priorities, and that will take us to the end of the day, or at least the end of our workday today. So with that, I thought we might start, if he's willing, with our new committee assistant, Morgan Feldman. Welcome. We're really glad you're here, and please take it away.
Very happy to be here. I'm happy to have met all of you. I'm just the new committee assistant. This is my first year here. I've interned here last year for House Energy and Environment, and I'm in my last year at UVM, and it's a pleasure to be staffing for you guys.
Great. Well, thanks so much. We're thrilled that you're here. And, you know, as we get used to systems, if there's any feedback you have for us or anything, we'll work it all out. But yeah, we're thrilled that you're here. So do you mind, we'll just go around this way and then do some introductions, and then we'll do the rest of the room.
Hi, everybody. I am Senator Martine LaRocque-Ulick with Chittenden Central District, and I'm the Vice Chair of Senate Education, and I live in Burlington. Nice to see everybody.
Hi, everybody. I'm Nader Hashim, Senator from Windham County, living in Dummerston, Vice Chair of Judiciary in the morning, and then here in the afternoon.
I'm Terry Williams from Rutland District, and I live in Bolton.
Good afternoon. I'm Dave Weeks, Rutland Senator, living in Proctor, and it's a pleasure to be here with you.
Yeah, Brian Campion, Bennington County, and Wilmington and Londonderry. Also great to be with all of you, some new faces. And we'll just keep going around the room. Wendy, do you want to?
Hi, everybody. I'm Wendy Koenig. I'm the Executive Director of Government Relations for the University of Vermont.
Hi, all. I'm Lindsay Hedges. I am the Policy Communications Specialist at the Agency of Education, and happy to chat with you all.
Brennan?
Hi, my name is Brennan. I'm a student at Bennington College, and I'm interning for Senator Campion.
Brennan, tell us where, tell everybody where you're from and a little bit about what you're studying.
I'm from Kentucky. I am not a Vermonter, but I go to Bennington, obviously, and I'm studying public action and basically English and politics.
Please.
I'm Tiffany. I'm an intern for Senator Ulick. I'm in my last year at UVM. I'm originally from Rhode Island. Yeah.
Whereabouts in Rhode Island? I grew up.
What? Well, I was born in Warwick, like near Oakland Beach, and then I moved in high school to Cranston, near Garden City.
Barrington, Bristol area.
Barrington.
So what's your major?
I'm a health and society and a Chinese major.
Good.
I am Kara Zimmerman. I'm the Director of Policy Services and Legislative Affairs with the Vermont School Boards Association. Nice to see all of you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Meg Fost. I'm a consultant with Action Circles.
Great to see you, Meg.
Jessica Oskey with the Craftsman Group. This is my 34th legislative session.
Wow.
Are
you kidding? Wow, that is great.
My first year was 1990. I just did that math on my hands, but I was like, that was easy because 1990, I could add that. I'm with the Craftsman Group, a lawyer, and we represent a number of clients in here, including Head Start, Let's Grow Kids, the Education Equity Alliance, and the NEA.
Great. Good to see you. All right, so Ms. St. James, do you want to introduce yourself and then kick us off? I asked Ms. St. James just to give us a little bit of a review, a refresher on what we did last year. And unfortunately, Ms. St. James can't be with us. We hope you're feeling better soon and look forward to seeing you in person.
Thank you. Beth St. James, Office of Legislative Counsel. I am also very sorry that I am not there with you in person. When you have little kids, they give you more than wrapped gifts under the tree for Christmas. So anyway, you all were busy last session Senator Campion asked me to give a very high-level overview. So I'm going to caveat this with, I put this together today. If there are any inaccuracies, I will correct them and send Morgan an updated copy to post. And if there are questions that I cannot answer off the top of my head or that are not answered in this document, I will either get back to you or you can invite me in for a deeper dive, whatever your pleasure. So you should have a 3-page, I think it's 3 pages, 3-page document entitled 2023 Education Bills and Reports Overview. The first section are the bills that you all worked on last year that were signed into law. So the first one is Act 64, which was originally H165, which is the Universal School Meals Bill. So that basically just codified the 1-year program that was passed in 2022. So now Universal Meals lives in the Green Book that lives in Title 16. It comes out of the Education Fund, and it is for all public school students and publicly tuitioned students to approved independent schools.
And Ms. James, if you don't mind, we'll pause after each one and just see if anybody, I'm going to start to build witness lists with Morgan and Senator Gulick and anybody else who wants to be involved. So if, for example, on Universal School Meals, somebody wants to update, we did ask Honora Horton to come in next week. But if anybody else wants to hear anything else on the program, just this would be a good time to let us know. Okay, go ahead.
Great. The next bill you all worked on that was signed into law is Act 66, which was originally H461, which was the House's miscellaneous bill. I've just briefly kind of bullet pointed here the major topics that were covered in that bill. So it got rid of the shared school district data management system participation and development requirements. So school districts are no longer required to participate in the SSDDMS, although they can still continue to elect to participate, and the development requirements were also repealed. The second piece here was that there is the National Guard Tuition Benefits Program, which provides several tuition benefits to National Guard members. This bill added a benefit, which is if a National Guard member is attending a post-secondary degree program outside of Vermont, and the degree program that they are enrolled in is not available in Vermont, they would qualify for this tuition benefit. Kind of the meat of this bill was the home study program amendments. This bill also extended the life of the Act 1 working group so they could finish their work. And then it also created, excuse me, the Act 1 technical advisory group to complete the work of the Act 1 group. And that new group doesn't cease to exist for another month or so. So they are still in existence. And then the last thing this bill did was it amended Chapter 11, everyone's favorite Union School District chapter in Title 16. And it was a small change to the number of signatures required for a school board member candidate nominating petition. Current law requires 60 voters in certain situations. And in certain situations, this bill added an or option. So it was 60 voters or 1% of the voters, whichever is less. And that is only in certain representation models. And that is the miscellaneous education bill from last year.
Does anybody want to hear anything from folks on Act 66? Before I mention a couple of ideas. So, Senator Gulick, you and I may have had a quick conversation about some outreach, some concerns about the home study program. Do you remember that early on? Mm-hmm. Do you want to give concerns, or do we want anything? I don't remember. I mean, as I recall, the home study program, the agency sort of talked to us about it as a way to streamline, make things better. But then I had a little bit of an uptick in emails at one point that said, well, are we pulling away? Are we, not holding people to the same academic standards? So might make sense just to touch base with somebody on that. I'm not sure who that would be. Do you know that? Probably the agency. So I'll ask Lindsay.
I mean, I can certainly, I believe that there was a side-by-side of the changes. I can certainly present that or just walk through the substance of the bill. But if you're interested in kind of the policy implications, that would definitely be someone from the field.
All right, we'll put it on a list of something that at some point, maybe not the top priority, but we'll get a handle on whether or not there are any issues there. Please.
My recollection of that one was that the AOB really wanted to kind of line it up with what was actually happening in reality, and it sounded like some of the provisions previously were just hard to enforce and were not being enforced, and so they really wanted to kind of align the two, and that's what this bill did. But to your point, Senator Campion, there were some folks who were concerned that it was kind of taking away some of the guardrails to the program. So it would be interesting to hear how things are going.
Okay. Yeah. Anything else on this or something else under Act 66? Okay. Act 29.
Act 29. This is, I think, probably the meatiest bill that you all worked on last year, which is the school safety bill. The bullet points here are high level. They don't contain all of the detail of the bill. But the first thing it did was it required option-based response drills policies for public and independent schools. And then those policies would be based on guidance issued by the Vermont School Safety Center and AOE. It required supervisory unions and independent schools to adopt an all hazards emergency operations plan, at least as comprehensive as the template maintained by the School Safety Center. It required supervised unions, school districts, and independent schools to adopt access control and visitor management policies. And it required AOE to develop a model behavioral threat assessment team policy and procedures based on guidance issued by the School Safety Center. And then school districts and independent schools were required to adopt policies consistent with that model policy. It also included various training requirements for behavioral threat assessment team members and data and reporting requirements. This had some kind of different implementation dates, so I just noted them here. So schools that were currently using behavioral threat assessment teams needed to comply with the model policy requirement no later than the 24-25 school year for this school year. But if a school, at the passage of this bill, if the school did not have a behavioral threat assessment team, they needed to establish a team no later than July 1, 2025. And there was an implementation and status report due from the agency on behavioral threat assessment teams on or before January 15th of this year. So I do not believe that that report, at least it's not posted on the legislature's website yet, so that should be coming to you. There was also late in the game an addition to this bill, which was the creation of the working group on student protections from harassment and discriminations in schools to study and give recommendations for how to address harassment and discrimination experienced by students. I don't know if you all will remember that there was a similar bill going on related to workplace harassment, and that bill actually passed in the changes that were passed related to workplace harassment. There was consideration in passing similar changes related to schools, and that language did not move forward last year. And so this language, this working group, should be reporting back to you. The report was due December 1st. I have not seen it yet. That doesn't mean it's not done. It just means that I have not located it. But they should be reporting back to you on recommendations for how to address harassment and discrimination experienced by students specifically in the school. And that is Act 29.
Questions? Senator Hashim, do you know, I know you were a big advocate for that report. Do you happen to know, or have you heard anything about a report coming out?
Not off the top of my head, but
okay,
I can check my email.
All right, we'll have somebody in and give us an update. And then it looks like we'll have a report January 15th on school safety. I believe, Senator Hashim, did you have a concern with school safety? Did you want to make an adjustment to the bill from a conversation I thought you and I had around schools with lots of buildings, or no?
I think that we made that change.
Great.
And fixed that issue before we actually voted on the
Great.
subjects.
Anything else? Yeah, Senator Field.
I would love to hear from folks to see how the rollout is going, and also, I know I hear, anecdotal stories, about the behavioral threat assessment teams possibly being, not easily implemented, so I'm just wondering if we might hear more about that.
Great point. And why don't we have Morgan mention that to Sue, Jeff, and Jeff, just to have them ready to say something about that. And if there's anybody else you want us to talk to about that issue, that would be great. Just let us know. Sound good? And if you have specific witnesses or anybody in your district that want to say something, let us know. Okay.
Okay, the next act that you all worked on was the large child care bill, which ended up being Act 76, originally H217, and your work on this focused on the pre-K sections at the very front of the bill. I just noted here that this bill was vetoed by the governor, but the veto was overridden, so it is law. This bill created the Pre-Kindergarten Education Implementation Committee to look at expanding and improving access to pre-K on a full day basis on or before July 1, 2026. The report from this working group is not due back to you until December of 2024. So that work is ongoing this session. This bill did require the Agency of Education to develop a model pre-kindergarten contract on or before December 1, 2024. So again, after the session concludes. But there were two pieces of work related to pre-K that were due before the session began. And that was AOE was required to share data with JFO related to pre-kindergarten on or before August 1st, 2023. And then there was a requirement that the agency issue a report considering what the pupil weight for pre-kindergarten should be on or before December 1st, 2023. At the very end of this document, there is a section with reports that you all should be getting this session, and there is a link to the pupil weight report there for you. It is on the legislature's website.
One question, if I could. So about the, I don't recall the pre-K contract. Is that between providers and the state, or is that between public schools and the state? Who's the contract?
I believe it was, let me see if I can pull this up quickly. I believe that the contract is contemplated to be between school districts and private providers. Let me see here. And again, this is just a high level notation. There's more detail related to the contract. So yeah, the contract would be for school districts that are contracting with private providers for pre-K services. And then that contract had to include anti-discrimination provisions and requirements for the provision of special education services.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then the last piece related to pre-K here was there was a contingent prospective repeal of pre-K weights if certain contingencies did not happen. I didn't list what those contingencies were, and the repeal would not be effective until I believe 2026. So if y'all want to dive into that at some point, we can certainly look at that, but I just am noting this. And so that was, if you'll remember, the child care bill was large and there was lots in there that was out of your jurisdiction. So I did not comment, and I didn't draft any of that. So I did not put that on here for a review.
Sure.
And then the last bill that you all worked on that's really relevant to the work that you're doing, that you did last session and this session was the budget. Act 78, originally H494. There's pieces of so much in here that I'm just touching on some of the things that you all looked at or may be coming to you. So there was, if you remember, there was a workforce development piece. I believe there was a standalone bill, and that language got put in the budget. So there was the Emerging Pathways Grant Program created to help educators in emerging pathways with the support necessary for entry into the educator workforce. There was the Vermont Teacher Forgivable Loan Incentive Program created, which was a forgivable loan program if eligible students in eligible schools agreed to teach in Vermont public schools for at least 1 year per loan year. And then there was an appropriation to fund the creation of the Historically Underrepresented Educator Affinity Groups Grant Program. And those are all funneled through AOE. Any questions on that before I move on to the next section? Okay.
Not seeing any.
The next piece was PCB testing. My colleague, Mike O'Grady, has handled this piece historically, and I think it is TBD which one of us will be doing it this session. So I wanted to include it here, that the budget did make an amendment prior to the budget's passage, and the budget was vetoed by the governor and then overridden. But prior to the budget passage, the requirement for all schools to be tested for PCBs was by July 1, 2025. And this section amended that and pushed that date out to July 1, 2027. It also provided more direction and specifics on how the money that's been already appropriated would flow for PCB remediation and recovery. And it grants the state the authority to recover from a manufacturer of PCBs monies expended or awarded by the state for PCB investigation, et cetera. And then the School Construction Aid Task Force was also put in the budget. Again, this was not something that I staffed, and my colleague, John Gray, will likely be staffing school construction going forward. So if that is something the committee takes up, you will get to spend a lot of time with John, I'm sure. The report from the Construction Aid Task Force is due to you on or before January 15th of this year. The budget also created the After School and Summer Learning Grant Program using money from cannabis sales and use tax. That had been forecasted for a couple of years, but that money was coming due to the regulation actually going live. So the budget created that actual grant program. And then this is a piece I don't believe you all worked on, but it was added to the budget. There was created the Adult Education Literacy High School Completion Program Student Access Study Committee to review and report back on decreased high school completion program enrollment and subsequent adult basic education funding issues. That report should be coming to you this month as well. The budget also contained a moratorium on the approval of new approved independent schools. It also suspended the peer review process one-time licensure fee requirements for fiscal years 2024 through 2029. And finally, it required AOE to collect and report on demographic information from educators and report that information annually on their teacher and staff full-time equivalencies report. That's an annual report, but the first time that the new demographic information would be due would be January 15th of this year. So the budget contained a lot of miscellaneous education pieces. And that was everything that I was aware of and combed through. It's entirely possible that I had missed something.
Looks about right. Any questions? Witnesses. Okay. Yeah, please.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, the chair. I would love to hear from I guess it would be the AOE, but whoever the body of jurisdiction would be, of how these loans and grant programs are advertised. It seems like the strength of a grant is in its, general understanding in the community, and so I'm just wondering, 'cause there are some other ones too, like a grow your own grant, right? What's the process for getting the word out on those? I'm just very curious. Because they're so important in the current shortage.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great. Lindsay, is that something you can help us with?
Sure. Lindsay Hedges, Agency of Education. I can say broadly, I mean, it depends on the grant or the loan, but oftentimes they're either announced through press releases and we rely on local media to disseminate the information, or sometimes we advertise through our listservs that go to superintendents and principals that go out weekly. So it kind of just depends on what it is. But if you're looking for specifics.
Yeah, I think when the Secretary of Education comes in, if you would give her a heads up that we'd love something a little more, meatier. Also, what kind of response are people getting? Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so those were the bills that you all worked on that were signed into law or became law. I have listed 2 bills here in the second section on page 2 that were voted out of your committee, but they were not signed into law. The first one was your miscellaneous bill. You all voted this out, and the Senate moved it on to the House at the very end of March. It included the Proficiency-Based Learning Study Committee, an addition for the library's working group to look at public safety concerns. That's all that went to the House. After introduction, but before the Senate as a whole voted the bill over to the House, there was the statewide curriculum audit and the post-secondary school marketing. I believe those were taken out during the Appropriation Committee's review. That bill went to House Education. House Education struck the entire contents of that bill and used it as a vehicle for some PCB language. The House passed that version, and the bill was actually, I believe, recommitted to your committee, to Senate Education. But as I just went over, there was PCB language that did appear in the budget. I have not reconciled them to see if they are the same.
Right.
But that's the life of S-133.
So you think we have 133?
Well, so according to
we'll check with Morgan, look up 133, yeah.
Well, I can reach out to the Secretary's office, but according to the bill's, lifespan on the website, on the very last day of session, it appeared on the House floor and there was a request to recommit the bill to Senate Education, but it's not listed in your bills in committee. So it may just have, I'm not sure. So let me reach out to the Secretary's office, but that bill did not pass. It's floating around somewhere.
But can the House recommit something to the Senate?
No, the House voted it out. They passed the PCB language and it appeared on the floor of the Senate. And according to, let's see, I'll read you.
Yep.
Senate floor action, I'm reading from, let's see. I'm reading from the Journal from May 12th. Senate committee bill entitled "An Act Relating to Miscellaneous Changes to Education Law" was taken up. Thereupon, on motion of Senator Campion, the bill was recommitted to the Committee on Education, and that's it.
Great. Thank you. It's great. So we'll have another vehicle if we need it for something. It's great. Thank you.
Yeah. And then you all did have your own school construction aid task force bill, S-134. You all passed it and voted it out of committee. It was referred to Senate Appropriations and it lives on the wall there today. But as I mentioned, there was a school construction aid task force created and passed in the budget.
Right. Okay.
And then at the very end here, I've put in these are not all of the reports that are due to you. You have annual reports that come to you every year. I have not included them here, and it is entirely possible that there are big reports that you all are eager to get your hands on that I have not included here. But these are the big reports that jumped out at me as coming due to you. If it is in blue or underlined, that's a hot link that will take you directly to the report. If it is not hot linked, if it's not in blue or underlined, that means I do not have access to the report. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It just means that I have not seen it and do not have access to it. And I will say, I do not believe, I am going to send an amended version of this to Morgan. I do not believe that you are due any PCB testing reports this year. That was an error on my part. But everything else I believe is accurate. You have the Act 1 Working Group's final recommendations. You have the working group on the status of libraries report, and you have the pre-K pupil waiting report. All other reports are either not due until January 15th, or I have not had access to them.
Williams.
I thought that the PCB report was due in the 15th of October. That was the deadline for the schools to have.
Do you know, did you hear the question?
I did. When I went back to look at this after I sent it to Morgan, because I wanted him to have it before it was too late. I believe there was a PCB like testing report, status report due January of last year. And I don't believe the legislation from last year made any new reporting requirements. I will confirm that and email Morgan, but I don't believe you're due a PCB testing report. The deadline for all schools to be tested for PCBs was pushed out to July 1, 2027. So there's still several years before all of that will be completed.
Thank you. Anything else?
Thank you. So they have not published the adult education and literacy school completion program report yet?
Thank you, Senator Gulick, for mentioning that. I should have listed that here. It is highlighted, the date that it is due is highlighted up under it's enabling legislation, and I am just going back up here to find it, and that is due January 15th.
Okay.
So I will, when I send Morgan an updated one, I will add that to the list.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
You were on that. And you were both on school construction, right?
Yeah.
And who chaired that? Who's coming out with that report? Do you know? I mean, who's writing that for us?
It's the AOE's writing it. Yeah.
Anything else from last year before we sort of take a step and move on to this year's priorities?
That was really helpful.
Thanks, Beth. That was great. Okay, you don't mind sticking with us?
Yeah, I'll just turn my camera off and lurk. So unless you call on me, I don't plan to turn my camera back on, but I'll be here taking notes.
Great. Okay, so we know we received many bills today, but we also have our own priorities and our own bills. So let's just go around, and so we can make a list and start talking a little bit about priorities. Do you mind starting?
I do not. Great. So you want to hear my bills?
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah.
Awesome.
And this is helpful, Morgan, as much as you can. Yeah, that'd be great.
I don't have any of them in front of me, but I will go from memory. One is a literacy screening bill, which would look to screen students, I believe, starting in pre-K for, the reading issues. And
Dyslexia.
Yeah, and dysphagia and some other, basically just put in place some, science-based techniques and ways of helping students learn how to read. So this came about simply because, as you all know, we're looking at almost 2/3 of our students who aren't reading at grade level. And a lot has been coming about out with regard to how reading has been taught fairly, I would say, inefficiently and somewhat ineffectively over the last 20, 30 plus years. So there's a real push to get back to kind of a more structured and science-based approach. So I look forward to diving into that conversation and hopefully taking some bold action to right this problem. So that's one. Another one is around the State Board of Education, which is just asking that the board be appointed in kind of a more sort of equitable fashion, giving more oversight to the House and the Senate. So 2 members would be appointed by the governor, 2 members by the House, 2 members by the Senate, and then the 2 student members, one of which is a voting member, would be appointed also by the governor. So that's another one. And then the third one is around admissions and attestations for independent schools, approved independent schools in Vermont. So making sure that an attestation is published on the website every year, and also looking at making sure that admissions are not discriminatory. And those are my 3.
And we looked at this literacy screening bill, and I'm glad you're bringing it back up. It's interesting. It came at the end of the session. Becca Ballant was the pro tem. And gosh, we'll find out who the big opposition was. I think it was the NEA, but we'll figure it out. It does seem to be bubbling back up. So I think maybe even on Friday when we start to look at, we passed a literacy bill 2 years ago, where might that sort of fit into it? And if you have any witnesses, you'll get them to Morgan for even Friday, a little bit of an intro would be great.
Sounds great, thank you.
Yeah. Any questions for Senator Gulick? What's that? Many? Great, Senator Sheen.
Sure, so I don't want to get repetitive. The 3 points that were just described are things that I also consider to be priorities. I also wanted to add on to that. I think that revisiting the conversation around PCBs and school construction is going to be important. We had an experience in the 2nd largest town in my district regarding PCBs, and so I have a number of constituents who have thoughts on what worked and what didn't work in that process. So I know we're getting the report relatively soon, but yeah, that's one of my priorities. The other is, which is a bit more broad, is the mental health issues that we're seeing in schools. Just with, I attended a superintendent's meeting in Springfield a few weeks back, and the data that they were giving us regarding suicidal ideation and depression among students is it's staggering, very concerning. And I don't know that there's any easy fix to it, because there's a lot of reasons to be anxious these days. But if there's anything that we can do regarding mental health and the well-being of our kids while they're going to school, I think it's something we're talking about.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll come back to that. Anything else?
So I share all their concerns and issues. But I also segues right into a bill that I've got. It's currently a draft that I'm seeking signatures for, that basically proposes the prohibition of the use of personal digital products and social media in public schools, independent schools, career and technical centers, and pre-qualified private pre-kindergarten programs, as well as the required adoption of policies that would allow students to opt out of use of electronic devices and online products with schools required to provide alternative instruction methods.
So is this in like a no cell phone at school kind of thing? Okay, yes. I know Maine just did it, right? And I know some other states are looking at it. Yeah, please.
I can't wait to have these conversations.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be fascinating, because there's so much data now around mental health issues that are stemming from cell phone use, and also just, recently in the New York Times, they were talking about math scores and their relationship to cell phone use and social media.
Up, down?
Down, bad correlation between the two, yeah, not good. But I was wondering, so I know in my school district, we have a policy that we just started this year, where you cannot have a cell phone in your classroom, but students are allowed to keep them in their lockers and access them like during lunch, and is that what you're proposing, or are you saying no?
Yes.
Can
They're
they?
gonna have a place to put,
Okay,
and you got all the data, it's a nationwide issue. I got a list of people providing testimony.
so they can bring the phone to school, but then not have it in the classroom. Okay, thank you.
I think, I'll speak in your I think the point is to have the conversation.
Right.
Who knows where it ends, but let's have the conversation because it's not working.
Yes. I look forward to it, thank you.
Yeah,
This
maybe
is tripartisan, brother.
you even got the progressives on this?
What?
Yep.
That's great. Yeah, no, I'm glad you raised it. Interestingly enough, our former committee assistant reached out to me months ago after I think he may have done even an assignment on it at Syracuse around cell phone use and trying to get rid of it in schools. He was the one that made me aware of the main law, so we'll have some folks maybe from Morgan, we can find somebody from state of Maine to sort of talk to us a little bit about some of the luck that they're having. I think that would be great. Yeah. And I'm glad you have a separate bill for it.
It's not my bill.
Oh, it's not your bill.
My constituents, and they have actually a team that worked to put this together.
Okay.
And I just kind of gave them guardrails and helped to facilitate the process to get it here.
Okay, great. But you do have a bill.
I do.
You do, okay.
your bill.
It's your bill, yeah. Anything else?
Nope.
No, okay.
I had one question, maybe back to about, weren't we supposed to get kind of a material condition report on schools? Wasn't that due sometime in the late fall? You know, some kind of a summary of where we are? And if so, did we get that? Is it up for viewing?
Yes, the Act 72 facilities report. Oh boy, let me look into it and then I'll turn my camera on when I have the answer and you'll know, but I think it was due this fall. But I will look that up right now.
Okay, so the priority would be to analyze and react. Okay. Also, school construction task force, analyze and react. And that's a priority in addition to the ones that you guys would. Of course, PCBs, again, analyze, react, what's happening, what we're finding, and then how we mitigate. And then from our constituents, the administrative consolidation of school, of high school, middle, et cetera, of the admin. Like, for example, the number of superintendents, the scope of the superintendents versus what other states might be able to have accomplished. I think needs a look. I think we need to continue with the CTE program, and specifically what programs are available, how many seats are available, what happens to the students who aren't gained into a program that they're seeking, and then what the industry need is for CTE, and make sure it's all balanced because there's it's a dynamic formula, and I think that CTE should remain a priority in the state to help solve this labor issue.
Yeah, thank you for bringing up the CTEs. That's another point. Over the summer, some of the issues that I heard about regarding CTEs also had to do with transit, and if there's a program in one CTE but there isn't in another, and that student is trying to get to that specific program, figuring out the transit is another challenge. And then also how we're paying teachers who fill these roles. The example that I was given was, why would a master electrician leave a six-figure job to make much less teaching in a school when they're at the height of their career? But, you need the master electricians teaching the next generation. So I think that trying to reconcile that in some way is an important step to take.
Yeah, all good. But
Yes, I will, yeah.
With that in mind, I was wondering if we might be able to go back and take a second look at that report that came out last year. We sort of talked about it a little bit and it was presented to us, but I didn't feel like we got into the meat of it, the CTE.
Oh, yeah, the CTE
Yeah.
report, yeah.
And then also in that
That's right.
context, maybe talking about apprenticeships, because I was on a Zoom this summer with a nationwide apprentice group, and that was really interesting, because it's like another sort of CTE-like program.
We have a CTE bill. I think Senator Clarkson and I may have co-sponsored it, looking at some of this stuff. Also we talked about this, should we drop the eligibility to certain grades? I think right now you can only get there 11th or 12th. I mean, could we go middle school, and what would that look like? To your point, what kind of pressure might that put on facilities, on teachers, that kind of thing? Ms. St. James, you're back. Did you have something about Act 72?
It appears that the facilities inventory has been completed, and the AOE actually has an inventory dashboard on its website. I will send a link to Morgan to disseminate to all of you, but that ends the basis of my knowledge on this. And so I would encourage you to reach out to the agency for more information.
Great. We have the agency here, so we'll have you and Morgan coordinate and have something to talk about. Take us through that. Yeah.
I had one more.
Yeah.
I think we owe it to all our constituents to take a look at school budgets and why they're growing at the pace that they're growing, because we're all going to get asked those hard questions. We're already getting asked those hard questions. I haven't seen a budget that's lower than 10% increase. Anyway, we'll go. Yeah, that's.
Yeah, please.
One thing none of us mentioned, which I think we probably should, is the Vermont State College. Probably need something to talk about.
And I have that on my list also of priorities. I was on the search committee for the new chancellor, and we were working to get her in. So let's just take until 2:30 and we'll come back. I'll go through some of the things I'm thinking about, and then we'll probably spend some time thinking about witnesses, and we'll wrap for the day. Okay, great.
Thank you. Need some water. I forgot that.
Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No,
Good.
no, it's
Okay.
With
the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
Are you-